Hello, and welcome to the Revenue Room podcast, where we talk about everything data, digital, AI, and revenue. Today, I'm delighted to welcome Jane Qin Medeiros, the General Manager of Industry Dive and studioID, the leading B2B digital media company serving 14 million audience members across 37 publications. I would say 37 verticals too, but we'll get into that when we get into our questions. She focuses on studioID, Industry Dive's global content marketing services group. Previously, Jane was the SVP of customer success at NewsCred. Jane was born in Beijing, grew up in California, and now lives in New Jersey with her husband and two children. Welcome, Jane.
Thank you so much, Heather. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Give us a little bit of your back. Tell us a little bit about your career and what led you up to Industry Dive.
Sure. Happy to do that. Like you already mentioned, I am a general manager at Industry Dive, concentrating on studioID, which is our global content marketing services group. Actually, I joined Industry Dive about 4 years ago when Industry Dive acquired the content studio at my previous company, NewsCred. And I actually know exactly to the day that happened because it was also the due date for my daughter, Ada. So we always call her our acquisition baby, actually. But let me tell you a little bit about that journey. Industry Dive, we are a B2B media company. We're in the business of building niche audiences, right? Everything from construction executives to banking executives to healthcare executives. And then we want to serve them well with high quality, compelling journalism. And we want to monetize that to B2B marketers specifically. And what we were starting to see at Industry Dive is, hey, we have all of these valuable audiences. We have incredible data that allows us to know not only who they are, but what their preferences are and which topics they care about, which topics they don't. And we were also starting to see at Industry Dive the growth of what was a smaller brand studio where we were actually helping B2B marketers create custom content to reach these audiences more effectively. And that's the first time I talked to Sean Griffey, our CEO. I was 5 months pregnant. We were in New York right before the pandemic. And my business, the one I'd been working on for over a decade, is actually building up a content marketing strategy and consulting and content development shop, really targeted to enterprise clients, really helping them think along the entire marketing journey to reach those audiences and bring them and ultimately convert them to leads and customers. So it seemed like a really great intersection, right? On one hand, we had these really valuable audiences and data. On the other hand, nothing really happens without having the people and the expertise and the ability to actually bring that to life for our clients. And that's where the journey with Industry Dive started. And if you'll fast forward 4 years, we spent a lot of time really bringing together what is studioID today. But beyond that, we spent a lot of time thinking about what the Industry Dive platform is today. And we actually call it a brand to demand kind of platform for marketers, really thinking about, hey, along that marketing journey for B2B marketers, there's more to it than driving a lead or getting a name and a number, right? It's really starting out with, hey, you don't know my brand. Let me help you to see that my brand exists, reaching the right audiences. From there, that's not enough, right? It's how do we actually create a relationship with people who are ultimately going to become our customers? How do we know what their pain points are? What is going to get them forward in their industries and in their careers? How do we connect with that? And then we have the right to say, okay, we have solutions and services and products that can actually serve you well for your business as well. So really thinking about brand, thinking about the relationship that you want to cultivate with customers, and then also thinking about obviously converting those audiences to folks who become customers one day as well. And here we are today.
That's so interesting. Many interesting points. And that is, you had the content expertise and skills, but didn't have the audience. Industry Dive had the audience, but didn't have the content studio capabilities, which is really critical, especially when you're going upstream. So it actually is a beautiful marriage. And I love the brand to demand. We didn't call it that when I was running manufacturing enterprise communications, but always used to say, it's like vision to decision, or start the conversation early and stay there. You can't just do one thing. You've got to establish who you are, but also not just a brand, but your expertise, and then hit these people and be there for them when they need you in all strategic ways. And content is huge. And I would think that content, I think a big mistake a lot of these vendors make when they write their own content with not getting that third party perspective or industry depth is it becomes too promotional. They just can't help it. Whereas if they have somebody working with them to really get the thought leadership down, that's terrific. With that, how has Industry Dive leveraged its vast audience data to help Studio ID's content development strategies?
Yep, absolutely. I think it's a critical part of what we do at Industry Dive, but also what we do for B2B marketers at studioID as well. The long and the short of it is that it's not enough for marketers to simply have the demographic information about audiences, right? A lot of marketers come in and say, these are the people that I am trying to reach. I would like leads, right? I would like them to become my customer, simple as that. And actually, in order to make those names and those members willing to talk to you, willing to engage with you, thinking well of your brand, you actually need to know a lot more about them, right? And that's where Industry Dive's data comes in. And in fact, Sean and I often talk about how there's not really anyone better than media companies, niche media companies with first-party data capabilities to really advise marketers on how to reach those audiences appropriately. So some of the things that we certainly know who these folks are. We know that they are interested in particular types of content, interested in particular topics. Importantly, we know what they are not interested in anymore.
Mhm.
That's something that's real time and evolving so quickly when industries are changing so quickly and the news cycle is so quick as well. And we also know their preferences, right? We know when they like to engage with content. We know how they like to engage with content. And in some ways, I think about it, if you think about any individual, and we have our preferences for when we go to the supermarket or when we go to the gym, or for me, it's when I drop off my children at daycare or pick them up, and if you think about it from a professional setting, it's also really thinking holistically about, hey, do I really know my audiences? Do I know my target customers? And how do I actually relate to them by creating the content in the right topics with the right angles? How do I intersect that to what I do on the right channels in the right formats, right? In many ways, the beauty of what we do at Industry Dive is we serve the audience. And by serving the audience, we can also monetize and serve our clients as well through our data, through our platform, through our expertise.
Yeah, I would say that's right prospect, right topic, right time, right channels, right format. And actually, you said something quite interesting in this part, which is it's essentially empowering your sellers to truly be consultants to their customers. It's not just first party data for the sake of delivering first party data to the advertiser. It's actually giving this depth and breadth of knowledge to customers so that their investments are maximized, which in turn has huge value back to the business because I'm assuming it means better lifetime, longer lifetime value, larger lifetime value, more wallet share, stickier customers, and actually, which leads me to my next question, which is these strategies, and hopefully you're allowed to talk about the percent of revenue that Studio ID brings to Industry Dive, but it's 40% from when we spoke. So that's a significant amount of revenue. What were the key strategies that were crucial to driving that? But then on top of the direct revenue, there's what I call the revenue halo effect. Like all of these other wonderful things we love about revenue to make revenue healthier, get into different types of customer segments. So if you could dive into that loaded question, that'd be great.
No, for sure. Wow, where do we even start with this? Yeah, there's a lot. I'll start by saying that within our content studio business, there is actually two cohorts of business that really feed off each other really well. On one side is a lot of what I think many media companies do in their custom content studios, which is run for us thousands of content campaigns every single year. That's creating a white paper, doing a lead generation campaign, helping a client reach our audiences and generate demand. On the other side of the business, there's what we would consider our enterprise business. And a lot of that business is annualized, right? It's big partnerships, engagements. We're working with folks who are higher up in the marketing organization who have better oversight over, let's call it the digital media side of the world, as well as the content marketing side of the world, as well as the brand side of the world. When we look at all of the campaign work that we do, our goal is to make that efficient and scalable, but to bring all of the insights and quality that we can for our enterprise customers to make. And I would also say the campaign side of the business, that's where we do a lot of, hey, are these clients, are these marketers, are these organizations mature enough for us to try to take it bigger with them, to try to take it farther with them as well. On the other side of the business, the enterprise business, now that's where a lot more of the customization, more of the strategy development comes in. And when we have those bigger partnerships, it gives us the room to do a little bit more, to think about, okay, here's all the ways we can reach our audience. Here's all the ways that we can develop content for those audiences. Let's really build a program, right? Let's build a measurement framework. Let's talk about goals. Let's talk about what the right strategy is. And let's work together really flexibly to think about quarter on quarter, month on month, what's working, what's not, what's performing really well, what's not. How do our blog articles on your .com tie into the landing pages that are going to collect names, right? And so these two sides of the business really help us do two things. One, and to your point, it's really growing longer term relationships that are more robust, that are multi-threaded within a marketing organization. And then on the other hand, it also helps us really kind of scale the business as well, right? Because you have kind of small pieces of revenue coming in every single day from these campaigns. And I think that when we do our best work, we're really drawing longer term partnerships, almost from a pipeline of campaign clients. And we've seen that happen a lot where you earn your credibility by doing a really great white paper, a really great playbook, a really great webinar. And you earn the right to talk to them about the other capabilities that we can bring to the table as well. And so that's the strategy. It's certainly maintaining a high degree of efficiency and scale and thinking about all the ways that we can continue to grow efficiency. But at the end of the day, it's actually, hey, I think every single one of our campaign clients can and should be a partner to us, an enterprise client. How do we make sure to surface those options and kind of bring them into our enterprise business with all that we have to offer?
It's actually interesting. It's like a land and expand strategy on both sides. So it's the marketing side is a pipeline for Studio ID, and Studio ID is a pipeline for marketing services. And the other part, again, remembering this is that being able to be in the customer, let's say they have an agency who's doing the buying, being able to actually have a relationship at the customer level is a huge bonus for many different reasons. And those in advertising will know what those are.
Well, as it is in our industry that we certainly have many agency partners, but our primary business is working direct to brand. And it's exactly for the reasons that you said, Heather. It's really, we do our best work when we can be partners with marketing leaders, when we can help influence through our data and our expertise, how they put together their strategies. And we really appreciate it when we see better results when we're actually working directly with them.
No, absolutely. So I'll go over to this next question I have, because everything you do is about content, and like, how are you using AI we're managing AI, let's put it that way, managing the opportunity with AI to help you with the business, but then also what I call the walls you put in place of we're not going there because it's too risky or we don't know enough.
Yeah, absolutely. As you can imagine, a hot topic of discussion everywhere, and certainly a lot of discussion on that at Studio ID and Industry Dive as well. First, I'll start philosophically. Right? One of the things that I've heard Sean sometimes say is we don't have to be first to market, but we can be really great fast followers. And I think what we mean when we say that is actually about safeguarding the quality of what we're able to do and making sure that some technologies like AI mature to a point where we are really feeling good about protecting some of our core things, right? Which is, at the end of the day, it's quality content, it's credible content. It's making sure that we're serving the audience well and serving our clients well as well. Within that, I actually think that some folks think that AI is just it's just another one of these things. Many people think that AI is going to destroy everything. And there's all the folks in between. The way that we're approaching it at Studio and Industry Dive is to really actually test and then implement when we feel like there's a real advantage to bringing AI into one of our capabilities, whether that's for the audience or whether that's for marketers as well. Right now, what we have tested are things like, in the content space, it would be things like AI for copywriting, right? AI for original content creation, AI for short form copy, AI for longer form content, AI for content atomization. And I actually think that today the power of AI might not necessarily be in the how do you develop content with AI space. It's in all the power of machine learning and AI to actually crunch numbers and come up with insights and help you actually operate the business or come up with the right insights to fuel the business, as opposed to saying AI can help us actually create content or replace humans in creating content.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I say that is because when we look at where AI is with technology, our testing has shown that it actually works fairly well when it comes to, I want to say, the secondary needed tasks to polish up content or to atomize content or to translate content. But original research and expertise, that's literally not what AI does. And so that part of actually having AI originate content is not something that we're doing right now. And it's just because the technology is not good enough. So for us, it's actually that. The methodology that we're using is to make sure that we're actually testing the different aspects of AI that are available, running kind of experiments with it long before we actually take that to market and put that in front of our customers or have AI creating any of our content. Right.
No, I agree 100%. At this point, you can't really replace the human judgment or opinion or emotion. And whether it's business media, or if that does come as part of actually, unless you're just reporting news, that's part of the content, the equation. So on the audience side, are you able to use AI to predict audience preferences, or if like an engagement level with a piece of content at this point?
So I would say that we've used different flavors of AI machine learning over the years to help specifically with aligning audiences with their topical preferences. That's where we use technology. I would also say that if you ask Megan McCoskey, who's my partner and our head of product, at this moment in time, still no substitute, and our best tool for audience engagement is having a deep knowledge of target audiences. It is making sure that we're producing high quality journalism and ultimately being really laser focused on the topics and the types of content that really resonate. So there's aspects of it, and we're going to keep looking at it. But at the moment, I think there's still going to be, for a while to come, a big focus on kind of the people and the expertise that we can bring to the table. Right. Now, Sean said something the other day that I really appreciated, which is, if anyone is worrying about the impact of AI, the simple answer is that we have to be better than AI and to do better work than AI. And I think that really resonates with me.
Yes. And I think you could add in, we have to be better than AI, and we have to leverage AI to our benefits. There's a lot of opportunity I see out there. And I think being scared isn't really going to get anyone where they need to go.
The one thing I'm excited about around the AI from our experiments is a little bit specific. It's in this world of content atomization, of taking something that an expert or a set of experts has produced, for example, a big research paper or a big white paper or a set of campaigns, and then thinking about how we take that originality that's housed in our humans, right, and translate it more quickly to the right channels, to the right formats, to the right ways that we can communicate that to the audience. And that, I think, is something that we are excited about at studioID. And hopefully that's something that can, live up to what we're trying to achieve, which is create high quality content as efficiently as possible.
So actually, that's a great. So for example, this podcast, when we're done, we'll have the recording, we'll have the transcript. So what AI could do is you could upload the transcript and say, take this transcript, and for our audience, because you trained the bot, but what would be 3 great blogs to come out of it? What would be the 5 social media posts? What parts should be little snippets of video that would resonate? Is that what you mean by, is it atomized? Atomized.
Atomize, yes.
That's my new word.
And sometimes that's just technology, right? Or technology that has existed. But I do see that that's something we're trying to implement more at StudioID, is turning something that would have taken 2 weeks into something that would take 2 days, but not getting in the way of the originality of the work that we need to create.
Mm-hmm. That leads me to another question, which is the ROI equation, right? You've got the part of the investment that customers are making with you in creating this content, the white papers, the playbooks, research, et cetera. Is one level, which would love to know how, let's say they don't do anything else with you, they just want you to create the content. How do you assess the ROI for the client? And then as you move on, it gets clear as you start marketing it in on the industry dive channels. But if you could talk through that a little bit more, that would be great.
Sure. Yeah. The ROI of marketing. Yeah. That's an offsite, Heather. That's something we can talk about. Let me get into it a little bit. So the first thing I'll say around this is that marketing ROI is frankly hard to prove out from a causation standpoint in a lot of ways, right? And that's okay. We have the advantage at Industry Dive of having a highly consultative sales team and a highly consultative client services team, right? Including our studioID content strategists, our enterprise program managers. And a lot of what they do is take, for example, a lead report, right? How many leads did you generate from this campaign? And talk to the client and consult the client about what that actually means, right? So, for example, one of the things we're constantly talking to clients about is folks who come to us and say, hey, the leads were good, but they're not converting. And so we can then dig into, okay, why? What are the other activities that we're doing around these leads? Did you call these folks the next day? Because that's probably not the intended purpose for the original campaign that we put out the door, right? Have you tried this? Would you like to work together on this? So I think part of it is the specific metrics that we're trying to hit. And then part of it is actually helping the client make sense of that, right? And helping the client take a next step in moving that farther along. As we get larger in our customer set and more partnership oriented or more enterprise focused, one of the things that we've done for a long time is start our partnerships, our annual partnerships, talking about a measurement framework, right? Really talking about, okay, here's the journey that your customers are going to take with you. Here's the journey you want them to take with you. What are the key metrics that we want to be looking at? And that could be across content engagement. It can be across impressions, right? It can be across, but really tying that to what is the goal of that? So if one of the goals is build brand, what are the proxy metrics that can show us that you're building brand equity? If one of the goals is creating content engagement at multiple points in a year, how do we actually look at that? And what are the sources of data we have to actually look at that together? And then finally, really thinking about what does conversion look like for you? What is the thing that you are going to be caught at for? Oftentimes that is QLs or number of leads created, but sometimes it's beyond that. Sometimes it's how much revenue have you influenced? But once we build that measurement framework, then we really oriented all of our activities, our reporting, our consultation towards, hey, I think that we're not getting the MQLs that we need because we need to do more up funnel, right? Or, hey, have you thought about taking this tactic or launching an email newsletter to make sure that we're promoting engagement and loyalty throughout your activities with clients? So the long and short of it is that really establishing a measurement framework is something that can help anchor a partnership. And then when it comes time for renewals and upsells, we have something to look to as well. Right?
Yeah. Again, start the conversation early and stay there. I used to always get amazed at, we would get that too. Clients would say, yeah, we generated these leads. They fit the ICP and the buyer persona and all of the things we want, but they're not converting. And then it's because you need to, 7 to 10 touch points. At least that's what it used to be in the old days. Now they're saying it's like anywhere from 18 to 20, but that before a buyer is going to engage with you. So what other things do we do while they're lurking around and doing research to make sure you're front and center in all those core places?
Absolutely. The trend is clear, right? Buyer committees have increased. The amount of independent research buyers are doing is a ton more than even a few years ago. Folks don't necessarily want or need to talk to a sales representative as early in the cycle as they used to. And now we have better ways to think about and know when people are actually evaluating a solution versus not in market as well. And part of it is actually being able to create those relationships before they're in market so that you are top of mind when they are in market for a solution also. So one of the other things I'll point out here that, we talk a lot about here at studioID specifically is for a lot of media companies, when we think about content and content ROI, so for example, with content creation, what we're doing is helping advise a client on developing a piece of content that's meant to live on our media channels, right? It's the channel that we put out. And oftentimes we're not always really thinking about, okay, somebody clicks on an ad, you can get an impression. What's on the other side of that, right? Because that's going to really impact the client's ROI as well. And that's one of the things we do a lot of, right? Which is we're not just looking at measurement and we're not just creating strategies and content for our paid media channels. We're creating it for the client, for the marketing organization. And that could include for the websites that they want to build, right? It could be for their social channels. It could be for their own email newsletters, right? And at the end of the day, actually, the wealth of data and first-party data insights and expertise we need about audience, that spans the entire kind of marketing stack and journey for marketers. It's not just in this corner of what can we do for our channels. And that's one of the reasons why we're able to think about longer term partnerships as well. Because when we're creating content, we're often thinking about, okay, here's what lives on your .com and your blog, and here's how it relates to this advertising campaign that we're going to put on retail that, right?
That really just, I just had an idea there. So you literally could say, it's not just this content, as you said, but because you have so much data about the audience, you could go beyond just advising about what's on the other side on the website, but it's like, how does the salesperson follow up with that type of client? What kinds of assets do you add to support what they engaged with? Even, what is the sequence that is put in place for that customer journey? So you're really getting into true pipeline partnership there. Not just marketing.
Hence forward.
All right, I'm going to move into some futuristic questions. My first one is, how, as a business, as Industry Dive, looking at the future, especially in light of what's happening with data, digital, and AI, and its growth strategy, because it's not going to be business as usual.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll talk more specifically about how we're looking at it. But I would also say foundationally, and this is what I believe, right, is that the outcomes are the same. I don't actually think that the core of what we're trying to achieve is necessarily different. I think we'll just have a lot more, as we always do, to deal with, a lot more tools at our disposal. But when it comes to the core of what we see as a successful modern media business, it's really about making sure that we're serving the audience. The channels, the tools, the ways we do it might change, but are we building valuable niche audiences? And are we delivering high quality independent journalism to them? Are we helping them in the ways that we need to? And ultimately, for the client side of the house, it's really about making sure that we're building ROI-centric content campaigns and partnerships, right? Now, I will say more specifically, Industry Dive, for the last 12 years, I think in some ways we're well positioned, right? We've always talked about opt-in audiences and first-party data. And I think that in light of what's happening with privacy and all of the kind of data stuff that's going on out there, that's something that we hope will help us. And it's something that we want to continue to focus on and cultivate as well. When it comes to content, right, and AI, it's what we talked about around making sure that it's a tool in our toolkit that helps us create better journalism and engage audiences better and help our clients be able to get more ROI. And the power of kind of the integration and the platform, and this is part of why we're so excited to be a part of Informa. So I think the path is really clear for us. It's very similar to the strategy we've had. Now, how do we blow that out and have some of these tailwinds and new tools at our disposal? That's the kind of stuff that I'm pretty excited to figure out in the future.
I'm going to turn it over to how you and I are now working together. And I'm really super excited about this. So we have a product now for executives like yourselves who are data-driven and in a C-suite role called Revenue Room Connect. And you are one of our first executive advisory board members.
I am so excited and very honored to be a part of it.
And what excites you about the opportunity? Why'd you pay attention to my email?
Yeah, absolutely. Outside of the fact that I have a lot of respect for you, Heather, there's, I think, the revenue centricity of it, but actually bringing together a lot of folks with different backgrounds to kind of When you say revenue, right, it's actually a lot of different things. It's not just the commercial people thinking about the finances, and it's actually not in a separate world of the editorial folks thinking about audiences or the audience development people thinking about. One of the things that I've always been passionate about as someone who likes to work across many different swim lanes is the intersection of all of those things in order to create a sustainable and long-lasting and profitable business. Sean often talks about how actually for a media company, you need to look at content strategy. You need to look at audience strategy. You need to think about monetization strategy. And actually, it's a little bit of a trifecta. And all of these things actually impact our ability to be successful as a company. Now, revenue flows across that strategy. And that's what I'm excited about is to really think about the different ways that other folks and people in the industry are actually tackling the many things that actually impact revenue. And I also think that there's a little bit of a rising tide lifts all ships. We're all in the same space then when we have experts and folks talking together and also really talking about not just the sunny side of it, but some of the challenges and fears that we have. I think it can be valuable across a lot of businesses. And certainly I'm excited to learn a lot from others.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. And it really is the essence of this idea of the revenue room is this. It isn't just sales. It's not just customer success. It's all together. It's product, it's audience, it's anything that touches the customer has an impact on revenue. And I could even use the example of if you're selling advertising and sponsorship on one side and you're selling subscriptions, that's all revenue, like that all fits together. And they are symbiotic in many different ways because you could have just a very baseline example is you could have advertisers who are subscribers or advertising prospects. They're engaged with your brand and they have spent some money. So there is a predictor there of some kind of if that's a prospect and we haven't closed them, but they're paying for a subscription to our content, what are we doing to push them over to the other side to make them an advertiser, right? Connect the dots.
Exactly. So thank you for inviting me. I'm super excited to get that kicked off.
All right. Just some fun rapid fire questions I always like to do at the end. And what's an unusual thing about your career that most people don't know?
Oh gosh, I started my career as a finance and bankruptcy litigator. So I'm a career changer, right? That's in a big way. And actually, you mentioned at the beginning, I was born in China, grew up in California. Growing up and going into college, like one, I just didn't know anything about careers, but like I didn't have the institutional history to know how to approach it. So there was a little bit of, oh, I don't know, sure, go into A, B, or C. Other part of it is that I always thought I would go into politics and kind of be able to impact public policy in some way. Now, like many folks, I came out of the law school system and started working at a big law firm in New York City. And pretty soon I realized that, especially as a young associate, a lot of what we do in the law is to protect people and to make sure that, in my opinion, it felt like protecting the status quo. And it turns out after some discovery and some, frankly, just some hustling, it turns out I really love business. I love creativity. I like working with a lot of people to brainstorm and then implement business ideas. So I feel very lucky that I got on this path. And oftentimes I advise young folks, if you're thinking about making a big move, do it earlier rather than later. Then you can probably wouldn't be able to make that same decision today with 2 kids and then and a few more obligations to do.
I'll say that the industry is very lucky to have you. So I'm very glad you decided to jump the legal ship. So what song do you love to sing when you drive by yourself?
Gosh, I love these questions. Nobody ever asked me these questions. For a long time, I tried to be very interesting and cool. And it turns out, Heather, I'm just not. So my safe space is actually 90s R&B of the Boys to Men ilk. So anything on the Evolution album, I am all about it.
That's awesome. And what book have you read recently that really made a mark?
I'll first say that I don't want to represent that I read so much for fun anymore. I read a lot of children's books, but I did recently read a great book. It's called Beautiful Country, and it's by a woman named Tian Juling Wang. And it's a little bit of a memoir, a little bit of I want to say just her story, and specifically her story as it relates to being an immigrant and how it impacted her and her relationship with her family. And I just thought it was so beautifully written. But as a Chinese American immigrant, I am always pleased and feel so closely connected to Asian American authors who are actually helping us tell our collective stories more and more in the public sphere.
No, I love that. I'm actually going to get that. Yeah, I love Asian American authors too. Listen, thank you. This has been so enlightening and inspiring, and I just chock full of information for other media companies who are looking to deploy a content studio strategy. And anything you'd like to close out or add before we say goodbye?
No, I'm so grateful for the opportunity to come on the podcast and to chat with you. For anyone out there, one of the things I really am is I'm really nerdy about marketing, and I love to talk shop. I love to talk business. So an invitation for anyone to reach out to me on LinkedIn if you want to have a chat.
That's great. That's great. All right, everyone. Thanks so much, Jane, and we will see you soon.
All right, see you soon.